Former independent counsel Ken Starr is speaking out in detail for the first time on CBS This Morning about his investigations and the impeachment of President Bill Clinton. Starr was appointed in 1994 to look into a failed real estate deal in Arkansas known as Whitewater. 4 years later, he investigated the president's affair with White House intern Monica Lewinsky. In his new book, Contempt, a memoir of the Clinton investigation, Starr writes, quote, "I deeply regret that I took on the Lewinsky phase of the investigation. But at the same time, as I still see it 20 years later, there was no practical alternative to doing so." Ken Starr joins us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's talk about that. What parts of the Lewinsky investigation do you regret?
I regretted the whole thing, but it had to be done. When the information came to us that the President of the United States may have been in the process of committing perjury, obstructing justice, we went to the Attorney General of the United States, Janet Reno. She agreed. And so the rest is all history. That's what I try to do in this book.
And let's remind people of some of that history. How did your office get the tip about Monica Lewinsky?
It came to us from a very well-known witness, but in the Vince Foster death investigation, her name, Linda Trebb. Linda was the last person in the White House who we know to have seen Vince Foster alive before he took his own life in Fort Marcy Park. And so she came to us with this information that she was being asked to file a perjury-ridden affidavit. That's how it began.
But so when you hear that a woman has information about an alleged affair that the president, and you're investigating Whitewater, do you say, we don't need to investigate that, that's not relevant? What was going through your mind in terms of investigating it?
What was going through our mind is we had seen this pattern before. Let's find a job for another character in the investigation, Webb Hubbell. Let's get him clients so that, in our view, he would not cooperate fully with our investigation. It was the same modus operandi. We felt that the president had not been truthful in the Whitewater phase of the investigation. So it was the same pattern.
So you started with the land deal, Whitewater, and it ended up all the way over at Monica Lewinsky. You, as you've just outlined, were following kind of the course of events as they've happened. When people talk about the current special counsel's investigation, they say, well, it started to look into collusion, but now it's finding its way to other places. Is there anything wrong with a prosecution that starts in one place and ends up somewhere else? No,
there are eerie similarities as to what's happening now as to what happened then. You just don't know what's going to come before you. The key is, are there checks and balances to make sure that the prosecutor isn't just doing anything and everything? The check at the time was for me to go to the Attorney General and for the Attorney General to go to the special division of the court and say, this has to be investigated. The President of the United States, and this is what the book is all about, the President of the United States may be committing crimes or perhaps has committed crimes. We've got to have a check and a balance, and that's what we have in the Mueller investigation.
So President Trump's legal team is considering whether he should sit down for an interview with Robert Mueller. Do you think he should?
I think as the President of the United States, he should. If I'm a criminal defense lawyer, I'm saying don't do it. There's too great a risk. So it's a different perspective. My perspective is the President of the United States has an obligation to enforce and obey the law.
Apply that perspective to the idea that prosecutors might be setting up what Rudy Giuliani has called a perjury trap for the president. Is that something respectable prosecutors do? And do you think that's what Robert Mueller's doing?
Respectable prosecutors do not set up a perjury trap. They try to get the story. What's your version of the story? And it may be a story that conflicts with what another witness says, but I don't view that as a perjury trap. But criminal defense lawyers say that.
Would Mueller do that?
I don't think he would engage in a perjury trap, no.
One of the
I have great confidence in Bob Mueller.
One of the things we've learned, the Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh worked on your team, worked on this investigation of President Bill Clinton. He wrote and suggested some very explicit salacious questions should be asked of President Clinton, but you didn't agree to do that. Why?
Well, we wanted to respect the dignity of the presidency, and I think that we did that, but we at the same time had to get to the bottom of things. So we asked all the prosecutors, what should we ask? And it was a deliberative process, and the rest is unfolded, and that's what I talk about in the book.
One of the other things you talk about in the book is you say an indulgent and prosperous nation readily forgave Bill Clinton. Give me your assessment of the nation and its moral judgment it made on the president. You talk about prosperity.
Yeah, I think that first of all, the system did work. Our system of checks and balances worked. That is, the president was held accountable. He, in fact, had to answer to the articles of impeachment. But at the same time, the American people are very forgiving, and we also want stability. And so one of the messages of this book is be careful about impeachment. Impeachment is hell. And putting the nation through that process is really quite wrenching.
Because one of the defense arguments that you seem to be alluding here to is a lot of people said, look, the country's doing well. The economy's humming. Why are you going to pick on this president who's got the country going so well? And what that echo of that we hear with President Trump, who's saying, he said, quote, they're not going to, I don't think Democrats will impeach me since I'm doing such a good job. Do you see parallels in that?
Oh, there are many parallels, because I do think that in the 1990s, as I recount in the book, which is called Contempt, and the contempt is because of Bill Clinton having been held in contempt by a federal judge, first time and only time, and hopefully it will be the only time in American history. So there are a number of parallels, and so we see that. I think history is teaching us, the history of the 90s is teaching us about 2018.
But do you send a moral warning to the country to say, you know, just because things are going well doesn't mean you should overlook these important questions about the rule of law, truth, and...
Absolutely. If we don't have the rule of law in the country, then we have not done what the founding generation said. We're here to establish justice. That's in the preamble of the Constitution. And justice means the rule of law and that everyone is accountable.
Monica Lewinsky has said the release of the Starr report, the 445-page report, was one of the worst days of her life. She wants an apology. Will you apologize to her?
No, I won't, because unfortunately the facts are the facts, and we were put in the position that under the statute in which I was appointed, I had a duty, I had a responsibility. I will say, and I've said it many times, I regret all the pain that resulted to so many, including to the nation. Of course I regret that. But no, I can't in conscience say to Monica anything other than, I'm sorry that the whole thing happened.
Well, the day that she was questioned in a hotel room was dubbed Operation Prom Night. Why was a sting operation necessary?
It wasn't a sting operation. What it was simply a mechanism of trying to confirm what we thought we knew, and we did know it. These were, in fact, the facts, and to give her the opportunity to cooperate with the investigation. Had she cooperated, this entire matter would have been wound up in a matter of several weeks, and the nation would have been spared all this. So we treated her with dignity, we treated her with respect, and said, here is the possibility. You can cooperate with the investigation, which has been authorized by the Attorney General, and was destined to be authorized by the Special Division. And now please cooperate and let's get this over with.
Can I ask about Ken Starr and what's happened since the whole impeachment of President Bill Clinton in your investigation? You went on to become the president and chancellor of Baylor University, but 2 years ago you left for mishandling sexual assault claims. There was an independent investigation of your role at Baylor, which said that you failed to take action to identify and eliminate a potential hostile environment. Should you have done more?
Well, I disagree with that finding, but I accept the judgment of the Board of Regents that there needed to be a change in leadership and a sort of new day. I care deeply and still do about the students. I continue to mentor and counsel students at Baylor. We love the students at Baylor University. I do think that the university, and I was responsible ultimately for that, failed with respect to the early response. How do we respond to this? But it was never brought to my attention until then at the very end, when in fact I recommended to the board that we have the independent investigation. I accept that judgment. We want the students to do well. University life should be safe, and all too frequently it's not, even at Baylor.
All right.
Ken Starr, thank you very much. Great having you here.
Thank you.
Contempt, a memoir of the Clinton investigation, goes on sale tomorrow.